Hey everyone, I'm coming on to talk about anti-racism work, and I am going to do it imperfectly because I'm really working on uprooting perfectionism, because perfectionism is a tenet of white supremacy. So I haven't practiced this and I don't know exactly what I want to say, but what I want to start with is just the acknowledgement that doing our own anti-racism work is a necessary part of our personal healing work. And if we want to become healed and whole, and if we're coming to this life saying, I want to grow, I want to evolve, I want to become, a more integrated person, I want to have integrity as a human being, it's going to have to include acknowledging our own implicit biases, acknowledging that we are racist as white people, and unlearning that conditioned way of thinking and being. And I truly think and see that recognizing our own racism, recognizing the way that we're racist, is shadow work. It is bringing the parts of us that we don't like, that we're ashamed of, into the light, because guess what? They're there. Like, they're already there. They're already in existence, whether we want to look at it or not. And when we don't want to look at it, we push it down and we suppress it. And what happens is it wants to be seen. It needs to come out. And so it comes out like in these unconscious ways. So if we choose to do our conscious shadow work, we bring the shadows into the light, into the conscious awareness. We acknowledge and recognize it. We find out more about it. We get curious about it. We see what it's doing for us, why it's developed, why it's there, why it's functioning. And when we can find out more about it, we can have compassion for it. And when we can have compassion for it, we can integrate it. And so I've been really curious about how to unlearn implicit biases that I have. When I see a person of color on the street, I have automated, habituated, conditioned reactions and thoughts and feelings, just like we all do in a white supremacist society. Racism is the water we drink, the air we breathe in this society. So we just have to start by acknowledging that we're all racist. It's just the way it is. But in order to become not racist, we first have to acknowledge those implicit biases, right? And so what I've been really thinking about is how to unlearn those. And I think what I'm noticing is that it's just like other conditioned and automated ways of being, other habituated ways of being that we learn, those automatic thought patterns that we have in our minds that are so continual. They're just like the default way of being. And in order to create new ways of relating to ourselves, or to learn how to treat ourselves well and love ourselves and talk kindly to ourselves, we have to recognize the negative self-talk, and we have to call it out, and we have to name it, and we have to acknowledge it, and we have to realize why it's there and what it's trying to do for us. And then we have to consciously practice the new way of thinking and speaking to ourselves that we want to happen. And that's the same with implicit biases. If we notice fear when we see a person of color, we need to notice that and catch it in the moment and say, oh, there's that reaction. There's that old habit that society taught me, and I don't want that anymore. And so now I'm gonna consciously make an effort to think a new way, to challenge that, to expose myself to people of color, so that I'm unlearning and I'm seeing new perspectives, right? So challenging implicit racial bias is similar to challenging old habitual thought patterns. And yeah, I just want to say, for me, it hurts me to have implicit racial bias. It hurts me to know to be racist. I don't want that in my heart anymore. And that's, of course, not why I'm doing racism work. Like, Black and brown people are being murdered, right? Black and brown people are being incarcerated and oppressed in our society. But just to acknowledge, like, it hurts all people to be living in a racist society. It creates segregation, separation. It steals our own humanity when we dehumanize others. So if we want to be humanized, if we want to feel human, if I want to feel fully human in my own self, I must unearth the parts of me that dehumanize others. I want to say a lot of other things, but I think I'm going to leave it there for today, and I'll come on and say more about anti-racism work in the future. And please let me know what you think. If you have any feedback for me, I'm really working on recognizing defensiveness, because that's another tenet of white supremacy and white fragility. So if any people of color out there or other white folks who are doing anti-racism work have some feedback or thoughts on what I'm saying, please share. And I'd love to see what you all are doing in terms of your anti-racism work. And yeah, call me into any actions that you're taking. That's something that I'm really working on, is continued forward action and not getting lost and not getting stuck in the shame, because that's there for sure as well. So I wish you all compassion for yourselves as you move through this work, as well as accountability. Bye.